Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the first East Goshen Township Sustainability Advisory Committee seminar. We had originally planned to have this as an in-person meeting at our facilities, but we all know why we're not doing that. So please bear with us as we experiment with our very first seminar. My name is David Shuey. I'm the East Goshen Township Vice Chair of the Board of Supervisors. And as an elected official to the board, my role is to act as the legislative branch of the township government. And the board is responsible for adopting and amending ordinances and establishing township policy. We approve all subdivision and land development plans, as well as any other matter requiring official action of the township. So, we're involved in trying to look at how we manage things like solar installations, geothermal. We want to examine our ordinances and zoning to make us friendly toward green initiatives as we go forward. Tonight, we're going to talk about that issue and also talk a little bit about geothermal and solar installations for residential and commercial. We have as our speakers Ed Kiphap, who will be the moderator of our program tonight. He is the vice chair of our Sustainability Advisory Committee. Kip is also a senior project manager at Hillcrest Associates, which is a local architect and engineering firm with a specialization in residential, commercial, and mixed use programs. And he's overall does master planning and design of regional lifestyle centers. Kip's an active member of the American Institute of Architects, International Code Council, National Fire Protection Association, and Green Building Initiatives. And important to our topic, he's earned a Green Globes professional certification so he can help clients connect with their sustainability goals and discover how to implement sustainability practices in their buildings. Our other speaker tonight, panel member, is Michael Schneller. He is with Clear Results. It's a Philadelphia regional firm, a leading real estate company. And his mission is to inform the public of the real value of energy independence and efficiency. Through your real estate transactions, Michael advises and counsels his colleagues and the public, and he focuses on energy efficiency. He works with the sustainability developers toward greater financial, environmental, and social health of our communities and, in fact, our country. Michael is a BPI certified building analyst. The third speaker we have tonight is Mark Gordon. Mark is East Goshen Township zoning officer. He's been filling that role at East Goshen since 2002. Mark is actually an environmental engineer by education and worked in the utility industry prior to joining East Goshen. Also proudly served in the U.S. Army and the Pennsylvania Army National Guard for 21 years, retiring in 2009. Mark is the director of the code department and oversees all permitting activity in the township, and he's also the township building code official, and he's a certified floodplain manager. The East Goshen Township Code Department has 2 certified commercial and residential building inspectors, a full-time permit coordinator, and a part-time fire marshal to ensure that the development and construction that occurs in East Goshen Township is done to meet or exceed code requirements. And Mark will talk a little bit about how our codes and zoning apply to geothermal and solar installations in the township tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Kip, who will be our moderator for tonight.
David, thank you very much. And welcome, everybody. Welcome to our first seminar on energy. This is a part 1 of part 2 series. We're looking to schedule our second one at the end of this month. Please look for an email from Jason or from our SAC department on when that'll be. I'd like to do a little housekeeping. If anyone is aware that if you have any questions, we ask that you email them to info@eastgoshen.org. And if you send that anytime during the meeting, Susan, who is the administrator at the township, can receive them. And at the end of the meeting, we will actually have a Q&A session. So with that, let's get started. And I'd like to start with Michael regarding energy audit. As we know, an energy audit, also known as a home or business energy assessment, can help you understand the whole picture of your home and business energy use. As audits can help you determine how much energy your home or business uses, where your home or business is losing energy, and which problem areas and fixes you should prioritize, making your home or business more energy and comfortable. An energy audit should be your first step before making energy saving improvements, as well as before adding renewable energy systems to your home or business. So with that, Michael, I'd like to answer the question, what should we expect from a home or business energy audit, and what specific elements are part of the inspection?
Well, basically, we do it's usually done through the utility company. Like for instance, PECO has a program called Energy Assessments, and they actually come out and do a full breakdown of the home. They look over the bill. They actually give you and install some energy saving items such as light bulbs and maybe some shower heads, depending on your water heater. But for the most part, they're looking at the envelope of the building. And that's one of the most important things you can focus on. The envelope being the exterior of the building, whether it's the attic floor or crawl space or the walls, windows, what have you. They can really determine if there's areas of loss there. And also give you, the best part is they give you solutions. A good auditor will give you solutions, and especially according to BPI, the certification requires us to be unbiased for one thing, but also allows us, they have to be cost-effective measures, because some of the things that can be recommended can be very costly. And a few of the slides that I gave to you tonight are to help an auditor determine whether or not a measure or a major measure can be cost-effective. A measure being, let's say, insulation. And if you want to bring your house up to Energy Star, which is R49 for this region, and
so that would just be an attic, correct? The R49.
Yeah, that's just an attic.
Right.
That's just
okay.
the attic. Just I'm using that as one example.
Sure.
But your bills for heating and cooling are fairly reasonable and fall within the guidelines of the Department of Energy, and they're basically rule of thumb statistics. And you're comfortable with that payment also in the winter months and the summer months for your heating and cooling. For us to recommend adding insulation a significant amount, if you already have, let's say, R38 or something like that, which is about 10 inches of insulation, and we say, oh, you should put 4 more inches on top of that. Yes, you're gonna have some gain from that, and some more comfort, but it's not gonna be a market difference. And I can't, as an auditor, recommend that. I would just say you're pretty good. If you want to do that, that's your own choice. But the return on investment on something, that is going to be a long time. On the flip side of that, if you have 3 inches of insulation, it's all over the place, I would highly recommend going to R49, because you're going to get payback within a year or 2 on something like that. So it's a really cost-effective thing to do, depending on where you stand already. And that's where the assessment comes in. You have to figure out where you are first, and then figure out what's the best way to improve. Hope I answered that question.
Sure. Is there any other things? I mean, I've always recommended to my clients to check the air infiltration, which is one of the particular items within the inspection.
Yes.
And I don't know if they particularly do a blower door test, or is that something that would be a specialist or especially beyond the actual energy audit?
Well, there's two different kinds. If you go on the PICO website, you can see there's two different kinds of audits that they offer. One for like a gas-fired house or a fossil fuel-fired house. A heated house would be just a regular standard assessment and energy assessment. And then they offer a energy assessment plus, which is for all electric house. And in that case, they do a blower door test. And basically what a blower door test I kept referred to is depressurizing of the house and actually putting a number on the airflow to determine air exchange rate. And the reason we do that is you don't want to over seal a house, and you also want to make sure that what you're sealing is going to be cost effective. If you over seal a house, you can get mold, mildews, there's a lot of things that can happen. And if you don't air seal, let's say the attic floor, for instance, if you're just going to throw insulation in the attic floor, you take the risk of creating mold in your attic, especially if the ventilation is not terrific up there. And the reason that happens is you lowering the dew point, and in the wintertime, the moisture from the house will pass through the insulations. The insulation doesn't stop. It's not an air boundary. It's not an air barrier. So it'll allow moisture to flow through the fiberglass or whatever you up there, unless you spray foam. That's a whole different thing. But that spray foam actually creates a boundary. As you can see on this slide, I'm talking about the attic floor there, and you can see heat flow and air flow going up through there. I must say, I mean, we use a lot of physics in how we determine these things. There's second law of thermodynamics, where heat flows from hot to cold, water goes from wet to dry. But hot air rises, right? As we all know, but heat is omnidirectional. So heat will go out in all different directions. And what we try to do and what we address as auditors is these planes, these boundaries. We determine what boundaries are important, and we identify them, and we look at their integrity. We look for evidence of infiltration or exfiltration. Dirty insulation is a big one. You can look around a wire hole or a chimney, a chase, stack vent that goes up through the floor in the attic. And if it's dirty, it's typically particulates from the house that are being drawn up into the attic. And so when you insulate, you want to address both of those at the same time. You want to air seal and then increase your R value or your insulation value. Does everybody know what R value is? It just means the resistance to heat flow in a material. So anyway, those are some of the things. And a blower door test will actually put a number, and we'll be able to see where the air is flowing through the house and make recommendations accordingly. Okay.
Yes, thank you. So I guess we'll go into looking at heating and cooling systems.
Sure.
Our big push right now with the SAC and with some of our studies that we've been working on is going 100% electric and getting away from the fossil fuels and going to heat pumps, geothermal, which is going to be a part 2 of our seminar at the end of this month. Do you have anything to add to that, saying what you're seeing, what kind of trends are out there for efficiencies? I know heat pump technology has advanced.
Technologies has advanced tremendously. Heat pumps, air source heat pumps are extremely efficient these days. Geothermal is terrific, but you're still using a resistance heater in your air handler. If the house is not insulated properly, or the envelope is not containing the heat appropriately, any heat pump will struggle to keep up with it, and the emergency heat will come on, which is costly. Correct. So we found that houses that have air source heat pumps, and usually 2 of them, one for the first, depending on how big the house is, but one for the first floor and one for the second floor, with separate ductwork to accommodate, are the most efficient, because there's no damper system and it's a smaller size. So the cost effectiveness is a little better, a little easier pill to swallow, I should say, when you're doing a system, especially compared to a geothermal system, which can be very good too, by the way. But I found that houses that have double heat pumps like that, and or the higher tech ones with the higher SEER value. SEER is the seasonal energy efficiency rating for equipment, and you want at least a 16 SEER to be pretty efficient. I mean, they make them 18, 20, 22, depends. And of course, they're more costly as you go up in SEER value because they're more efficient. And the technology is a little more advanced. Let's see, I keep getting at the best house I've ever seen was one that had electric heat pumps with solar. And primarily the solar was to accommodate their heating system. And
that was solar to generate electricity, or was it
solar voltaic? Yeah, solar
okay.
voltaic. No, I always push, and I studied material engineering at Drexel. That was a lifetime ago. and got into real estate after that, but then just tried to, or did pursue a career in energy efficiency about, I'm saying 10 years ago. Started to do this. And Clear Result is not a real estate company. It's a energy consulting firm that's United States and Canada. And we are, we do a lot of the programs for the utilities, handle their programs, their efficiency programs, I should say. So the solar panels definitely help with that. Now, if you don't make your house as efficient as possible first, it's very difficult for a rooftop to accommodate all of your electric needs on your system, on your voltaic system. That's what I found. I should say I took a solar sabbatical from energy auditing for a bit and sold solar for about a year or so through a couple of organizations. My luck was terrible. My timing was terrible. I did okay, but the companies didn't. They closed down their territory, and then one just shut down their American operations, and it was like number 2 in the country. So go figure. Wow. You think about conspiracy theories, and so why would they do that? But anyway, my experience with it is that it always makes sense, but the sizing of the system is very important, and how the utility looks at it and how it's going to be cost effective over time certainly is something to consider. But there's like call it an order of operations, like in mathematics. You'll have your envelope and your that has to be the most efficient, and then you work on your equipment, like your heating and cooling equipment, and then renewables. Because if those 2 other items are not up to snuff, let's say, your system has to be too big to accommodate that, and you probably won't be able to get to that point. And I've been on panels for RF 100, Ready for 100, and also Penn Environment. They're pushing for 100% renewables by 2050 in Pennsylvania. And one of the things that came up, a couple engineers out of the west of Pennsylvania were talking about, to become 100% efficient, we have to reduce our usage by at least 3%, and we're never going to get there. And that's a significant amount. I say 5% would be better. I mean, I'm talking across the boards. It's not that hard to do it residentially, but commercially, industrially, institutionally, 5% would be a lofty goal. And then you can possibly use complete renewable sources for your electricity. So back to your question, yes, the best systems are electric. And I think the new heat pumps are a terrific way to address that.
So I guess our last question with Energy Audit would probably be our lighting. You would touch base saying LED bulbs, but is there anything else that we should be looking at other than replacing most of our lighting? I mean, lighting controls, is that something we should be looking at as residents and commercial users? I mean, it's in the codes, yes. And it's being pushed heavily in new construction, but it doesn't really push heavily in renovation and retrofit. But right. Is it something that a homeowner or a commercial business should look at? Is there a savings that would be substantial that they should be looking at this?
Yes, I mean, lighting is what they consider low-hanging fruit because it's an easy thing to, and not that costly to change and replace. So automated systems for homes, a smart house, I guess you would call it. That would be one where, you could have motion sensors, you have timers on and everything. I know the Google Nest thermostat kind of monitors the way you use your heating and cooling and will adjust your temperatures accordingly and when they come on. So that same technology is capable for your lighting as well. With a newer house, it's much easier, of course, but with they actually use Bluetooth controls, I think, so for the bulbs. So you can run your house from your phone. Timers are very effective as far as exterior lighting. A lot of people like to illuminate their houses at night, or they have them on for security. And I must say, through my experience, a lot of homes that I go to have the lights on when I get there, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, because they don't think of it, and or the timer's off, it's not working properly or something. And so I always say, check that first. I mean, it sounds silly, but it's actually a very effective way to lower your costs. In fact, I have stories. I have lots of stories from in the field. But one, I was at a house, and it was a big house, and they lit up the house at night, and they said they were efficient. And then I looked at them more carefully, and they were halogen bulbs, but they were like 300-watt bulbs. And yeah, and the LED equivalent was probably $65 each for the equivalent. But they were spending almost, I'm going to say $75 extra a month to light the outside of their house in the evening. And this would have saved them, 85% of that. So if we did the math, and I think there was 10 bulbs, it would have taken 6.5 months to pay for those bulbs. And then, they'd have almost $60 a month savings after that, which is, it was a big expensive house, so it wasn't a huge deal for them, but they wanted to do the right thing. They wanted to lower their carbon footprint, and they, just wanted to set an example for their children. So that was a good thing. So LED light bulbs absolutely are more efficient than incandescent light bulbs, or even the curlicue ones, the compact fluorescent ones. But they're still pretty efficient. I mean, they're not going to gain a tremendous amount by replacing your compact fluorescents with LEDs. I mean, it will help, but it's not going to be as significant and cost effective as going from incandescent to LED. So, and I would do every bulb in the house if you can. So.
Well, Michael, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any final comments before we jump to Mark for Township and Building Code?
No, I think that's about it. I would just.
Okay.
Kip, I would like to just say, I'd just like to say one thing, and that is the reason we started off with the energy audit idea is that it was impressed upon me that it's the first thing you need to do before considering anything else you're thinking about, solar or switching to geothermal or whatever you're going to do. You need to kind of understand the scope of the issue, and everything should start with an energy audit before you do anything. So that's why we chose that as our first topic, and I think it's important for everyone to understand why.
Yeah, and I mean, assessment is a very educational. It's educational for the homeowner or the business owner. They really learn a lot about their house or their property and how the systems work and everything else. It's not just about replacing light bulbs. So.
All right.
Now, Kip, we do have 2 questions from Michael. I don't know if you
We're going to wait till the end.
Wait till the end for all
Mark.
questions.
Yep.
Okay.
So around 7:40, we're going to try to wrap everything up and have about 20 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll close the session just before 8. So
terrific.
I'd like to move on. Mark, I'd like to ask you the next question, which was regarding Township and Building Codes. So our next part 2 is going to be regarding solar and geothermal energy systems and must be built in compliance with local, state, electrical fire codes in order to be safe and reliable. Most standards of the solar and geothermal systems are set forth in the National Electrical Code, the International Mechanical Code, which provides specifications on equipment, installation methods, and design protocols. In addition to the NEC and IMC, the International Residential Code, the IRC, includes standards for apply to solar hot water systems and solar PV systems. Unique components of solar thermal and hot water systems are governed by the International Mechanical Code, IMC, the International Fire Code, IFC, establishes solar provisions related to fire access and fire safety. The International Energy Conservation Code, the IECC, contains specifications for on-site renewable energy generation for the commercial sector. And finally, the International Code Council publishes all these codes and the National Fire Protection Code, which is published by the NEC. You asking a question to you, Mark, what local and zoning codes govern and control the installation of solar and geothermal installations in East Goshen Township? And are you aware of any additional codes that need to be taken into account, such as any HOA covenants?
Right. Well, thanks, Kip, for having me tonight. And this is a topic that comes up fairly frequently. Over the years, I've learned a lot from residents who've gone through the process. My home actually had a hot water system on the roof when we bought it, and it was in total disrepair and had to be removed. But so they are out there, and the photovoltaic was very popular for a period. So the township does have provisions in the zoning ordinance for the use, and we look at solar systems as an accessory use for residential, and it's also accessory for commercial, industrial, depending on the zoning district. It's permitted in all districts for rooftop and for ground mounted to the extent that it's a accessory to the principal use. We don't provide for solar fields or solar arrays that would be the principal use on the property. We just didn't believe, or the board and planning commission didn't believe that that was an appropriate designation for the smaller lot sizes that we have left in East Goshen in our corporate parks and industrial parks. So they are permitted in all districts, as I mentioned. And like you talked about all the codes, I have them listed there as well. So primarily zoning takes care of, is it appropriate for the district, and what are the size limits, height limits? Is it going to impact anyone by glare, that type of thing? So we also—
Is that a separate application that needs to be submitted for a solar glare study?
So typically, when we first adopted the ordinance, it was a question that nobody could answer for me. I was asked, okay, is there an anti-glare function or a film coating or something on these panels? And they would scramble around and have some engineer send a letter. Now it's very common on the cut sheets of the panels to talk about the glare resistance. And obviously, solar panels function is to absorb the sunlight, right? If you're reflecting it, you're defeating the purpose. So they realize that, no, of course not. These aren't mirrors. We're not trying to direct the sunlight to a collector. We're trying to harness and draw in that light. So that's a common call out on the cut sheets today. So I haven't had to have a study of any type for the applications that we've done here. So that's primarily the codes that we go by. And as far as HOAs, yes, there would be some that would probably be prohibitive. Hershey's Mill, number one, just off the top of my head.
Now, is that Hershey Mill, the retirement, or Hershey Mill Estates?
So Hershey's Mill, yeah. So Hershey's Mill, the community, the planned residential development with age restricted. Those folks, they don't maintain their roofs. They're maintained by the Homeowners Association. So the Homeowners Association is, as far as I know, doesn't permit them on the roofs. We don't have any in Hershey's Mill.
I know they're working on it right now. There are some roof contracts that are starting to go, and they're trying to implement potential solar on some of the communities in Hershey Mill.
Yeah. The challenge you have there is there's, that they get reassessed anytime there's an improvement to the building, or, they don't have enough money saved up in their, in the sinking fund for the roof. And now just replacing the roof is going to require a huge assessment on all the property owners. And when you add solar on top of that, I'm not sure how that's going to go over, but that's our experience, is that they're a little reluctant for those types of things. And other homeowners associations that I'm aware of do not prohibit them. We only have a couple that have really stringent requirements. The rest are primarily, social and very loosely regulated homeowners associations. So some of the stumbling blocks, if you want me to just continue on there.
Yeah, the one thing I think would be the fire code, or any kind of fire or electrical codes that is going to hinder or help the homeowner understand what type of safety would need to be installed before the can be applied.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder. So what people a lot of times don't understand, the layperson doesn't understand, that panel is still generating electricity even when the firefighters come to the house and they hit the disconnect. Those things are still generating electricity because the sun is still out, if it's a daylight, obviously. So there is a challenge for them safety wise. They also have to be able to get on the roof and access the roof in all conditions in order to let the fire breathe, so that they don't endanger firefighters' lives when they're fighting a fire inside the building. So there has to be room around the panels for them to negotiate the rooftop, open up the roof if they need to. Also, if you want to maintain it, you don't want just all panels, because then it's very difficult. Then you have to walk on the panels, you could fall. So yeah, we require a 3-foot, and it's probably the most stringent requirement I've seen. But our firefighters were adamant they need at least that space to get around a roof. And I think, from any edge or any peak, so that they can negotiate a rooftop. As far as the NEC, of course, there's all kinds of electrical requirements that your electrical inspector is going to require. We don't do electrical inspections in East Goshen. We've always outsourced those to a licensed third-party electrical. So for detailed stuff on electrical, I'd have to defer to an electrical inspector. I don't have that experience. I just know that it is significant because, again, it is a electrical generating panel. And, obviously the utility also has all their requirements as well. So on top of all those, they have to get the utilities to sign off on the connection to the grid as well.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk a little bit on the geothermal side. What type of restrictions, code-wise or building code-wise, would there be for geothermal setbacks? Is there any? Yeah, sure. Codes that the township has, or building codes that you want to give a little insight to the residents and the commercial business owners? Yeah, sure. So geothermal system much more prevalent than solar. Actually, there are villages in Hershey's Mill that were originally built with geothermal, and just in the most recent couple of years, they've been replacing them. So they got some good life out of them, which we didn't even realize. We came along, this generation of the code department wasn't around when those villages were built, but now, we're seeing them being replaced, and much more efficient units and that type of thing. We're hearing really good reports from folks saying, wow, what a difference that new unit made. I'm so glad I stayed with the geothermal. Some people have decided not to abandon the geothermal and just go with the standard system, either heat pump or some kind of fossil fuel, either primarily natural gas over there. But yeah, they're very, very popular. People like them. There's 4 different types: the closed loop, open loop, horizontal, and vertical. And
it can really enhance your energy efficiency in the home. So the use is permitted. There's no zoning requirement for geothermal. It's a below ground type of system. You have to have room for the closed loop and open loop. So in Hershey's Mill, for example, they used wells that were already drilled for the purpose. And the installation is done with just a general building permit for mechanical. So you have all the mechanical requirements and of course, energy codes and electrical codes that go along with installing a HVAC system.
Are there any setback issues that a homeowner or commercial business should look at? Building setback?
From
Or,
a property line
Yep.
and from the building, not that I'm aware of. They probably just want to make sure you really document it well, because in the event that you need to do anything or another owner comes along and plants a tree and it's a loop system and there you go, you just shot it because you just dug a hole right through it. That would be the only challenge, I think, is to document it well and make sure that that area isn't disturbed, obviously. Wells, and then when you use a well, even though it's just for heating purposes and your heating system, it still requires permits from the county because it is a water well system. They want to ensure that there isn't no cross contamination between the potable drinking water well system in the home and the system for the HVAC. Susan, if you could just go back one slide. Oop.
Oop.
If you want. Oop. I can't hear you. You're muted. But what I was going to say is I think I missed a couple of things for solar energy. And I think some of the
That one, Mark, sorry about that. This one.
please, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
So, and some of these are also go hand in hand with geothermal. Obviously, the cost. The difference with geothermal and solar is everyone has a heating system in their home. So if yours goes out and you wanted to go to geothermal, the cost, obviously the increment that it would increase is not as bad as if you had a good system, you just wanted to replace it. But so solar panels are also very expensive. The lifespan is what we're hearing 15 years or so. They're attached to a roof. There's always unknowns about the roof can handle. A lot of times we have to determine that through the permitting process. If it's a truss built structure, could be a little tricky to get somebody to sign off on that. And if it's a stick built, a framed roof system, we typically see them having to be supported by additional structure to hold those panels. So that's an additional cost. And you haven't even got to the panels yet. You haven't even got to the system. We highly recommend to folks replace the roof before you do the solar panels. So if your roof is 10 years old, you may get away with it. You may be able to make it 15 years and before the next panels have to be replaced. But if you have a 20-year-old roof, you probably need to replace the roof first.
Yeah, and most asphalt roof systems today have lifetime warranties because of the technology. So, I mean, you're almost, if you've got a 20-year roof from the past, I know I've got one that's only warranted for 30. I'm at 20 right now. I would want to replace before going to solar.
Yeah, and it would probably void the warranty as soon as you add something, so once you add a structure up there through those shingles, that firm will never honor that unless you let it go ahead of time. But my guess is they wouldn't honor it. And then, there's always the unknown. The homeowner doesn't know what the homeowner doesn't know. They're lay persons. Most of them don't do any of this type of work like we do. So they always have all these hard questions. All these questions we answer very frequently with folks when they're doing these two types of energy improvements to their homes. And I can say, just to comment a little bit on a couple of things that Mike said. I also have a lot of stories. A lot of people call the township and ask a lot of different things. And we love helping them with these things because it makes a difference in their pocketbook, makes a difference in their comfort of their home and the value of their home as well. So we love helping them do that. And just from my own experience, heating water, I went from a oil system, and it was a summer winter hookup. So I was always running heating oil to heat water in the summertime. Well, when we did some renovations, I said, we're getting rid of that. I couldn't believe my energy bill doubled for hot water, but that was it. That was electricity. So, but I wasn't burning all that fossil fuel anymore. So at least at my home, who knows what they're building, burning at the plant. So yeah, those are kind of those hurdles for homeowners with solar, and some of the stumbling blocks for Geo would be the same cost. Like I said before, however, you're getting something when you put in a new HVAC system. And again, the unknowns. People don't understand how they work. And there's a lot of good information online about them. And it's pretty easy concept for folks to grasp. So I think education is a big piece of understanding what's out there. And most, if not all, of the local HVAC contractors here, they deal in geothermal, just about every single one that I've seen. So a lot more out there. Before, decade, 15 years ago, there was only a handful of guys that would do it. Now just about everybody does them.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark. I think that's going to conclude our panel discussion. I'm going to open up to questions. And Susan, you said you already had a few for Michael.
All right. The first one for Mike is someone is asking, they have a 20-year-old refrigerator. How much could they save in energy by purchasing a new Energy Star refrigerator?
Okay, we get this question a lot. Well, it's interesting. Around 2000 is when they really started to make the refrigerators more efficient. So 99 to 2000, it's probably a fairly decent model. So it's the only true way to determine what it's costing you is to put a meter on it. You can do some guesswork by looking at how many watts it uses and how often it comes on and off throughout the day or throughout the year. But the best way is to put a meter on it, determine how many kilowatt hours it uses in a month, let's say, or the year for that matter. The new ones, the energy guides on the new Energy Star refrigerators, depending on the model, but sheesh, they're only like $60 a year to run, $75 a year to run. Some of the older refrigerators, prior to 2000 could be as high as $300 a year to run. I'm guessing that the one built in 2000 is running about $200 a year, roughly. So you have about $125 a year savings if you were to go with a new refrigerator. However, cost effectiveness, the new refrigerator is about $2,000 for a good one to replace what you have. 20 years, you'll get your money back. You'll have a new refrigerator. Sometimes, again, the stories come into play. People drag me into their domestic disputes about whether we should get a new refrigerator or not. I kind of have to just take a step back and kind of figure out what they're actually asking me. And then I don't choose sides. Thank God I don't choose sides, but I try to give them some sound advice on how to determine whether or not it's cost effective. And it's not always about cost. I mean, they may be remodeling the kitchen or what have you. And, if that old refrigerator finds its way to the garage or the basement, that's fine. Exactly. That's fine. You can also, if you go on the PICO website, there's rebates, there's a recycling program. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they have a refrigerator recycling program. They'll give you $75 for your old refrigerator, as long as it's working, and take it out of your house for free. So you just have them come and make an appointment, and they'll take it out. I don't know what the COVID restrictions are right now, but that's what they did prior to this mess we're in. But I guess the long and the short of it is definitely more efficient and will save you some money over time. But if it's working, in my experience, is like, if you like it and it's working, wait till it's, really starting to malfunction and then get rid of it. Or you can be proactive, but you're not going to save, it's going to take a while to get your money back on something like that. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's another question for Mike. The person saying that they've watched you in a previous Zoom meeting where you mentioned about getting your utility bills down to $1 per square foot. What do you typically see in houses that have not performed any remedial or energy saving techniques to reduce airflow or increase the energy efficiency of your home?
What have I seen in the field?
Yes, what have you seen in houses that have not performed any energy saving techniques?
Yeah, I mean, that slide that I had before was a house that was, I only showed the electric part of it, but that house was about $1.40 a square foot per year. And the numbers are calculated. I use rules of thumb just to give people an idea, like where they stand statistically in a group of houses in this region. I know we try to compare all the time with to see what, if we're in the ballpark or we're efficient or not efficient. So that house was $1.40 a square foot. And the statistics, I believe, are like $1.20, $1.22 for an average house in this region for all your utility costs. And that includes your hookup fees and taxes on your bill, not just the usage. So we look at usage, we look at anomalies in the bar graph to see, what is happening in the winter, establish a base load to determine that. And also in the summer, we determine, I know Mark mentioned going from oil to electric. Electric hot water heaters can definitely cost a serious amount of money because it takes a lot to heat a BTU of water. It takes a lot of BTUs to heat a gallon of water. So, it translates into a lot of usage there. So we try to, encourage using low flow shower heads. That saves a significant amount, up to $60 a year on your water heating costs. But so what looking at the airflow through a house, the basement, BPI certification means you look at the whole house as a system. You want to make sure that you take care of the whole envelope. That includes the basement, what they call the rim joist. There's vulnerabilities in a house. The biggest one being the attic floor, but there's also the rim joist, which is the perimeter of the basement on top of your wall. It's, you have your concrete, then you have one course of wood that basically goes around the house that ties your flooring joists together. And that 2x12 is all that protects you from the outside. So a lot of times builders, I know code has changed, but I see a lot of houses built throughout from the last century that's completely exposed and very vulnerable to the elements as far as moisture coming in, infiltration from the outside, but also heat loss through that. When we do thermal imaging, you can see it's very prevalent. If it's really cold outside, you can really see there's heat exchange here. So that's one way that we look for, holes that are drilled through there, hose bibs for water, electric, everything. The exhausts from the newer heating systems, which are plastic pipes. It's funny, I see a lot of stuff, right? So the HVAC guys will come in, put a 95% efficient heating system in, and they'll leave a 1/2-inch gap around the holes going out to the outside in the basement. And it's just, all it takes is a little great stuff basically, and it's sealed, you know. So I don't get it sometimes. The better companies will take care of that, but I've seen it. I'm like, hey, you didn't finish the job here. You know, I don't know if that's code or not, Mark, but it should be.
No, we follow up all the time, you know, and caulking around
sealing,
all the seals, all the duct work, everything. My guys,
Yep.
they're sticklers about that.
I mean,
because
there's also like fire code. I don't know if it's fire code, but there's
Fire
fire
code.
reasons, because you want to
between the
make
bubbles.
sure that you prevent the airflow going into the attic. And you also want to make sure like the stack vent chase that goes from your basement to the sewer all the way up through the ceiling, out to the outside through the top of your house, where that goes through the floors, that needs to be sealed, because you want to prevent any airflow from going in there. God forbid there's a fire in the basement, it'll run directly right up into the attic if that thing is not sealed. And the same goes for any kind of conduits for electric or anything like that. Chimney chases have to be sealed properly. And that's all part of our BPI training and investigating. We look at things and look for evidence of that. The blower door test that maybe the questioner was referring to is basically a big shroud that goes over the front door. We have a huge fan that basically sucks the air out of the house, and we can determine a number of cubic feet per minute that goes through there to determine how leaky a house is. Some houses are very leaky, some houses are pretty good, but you want to use that number because you don't want to overseal either. So you want to bring it down to a safe level that's most efficient, and that's where the BPI certification comes in. That's why you would want to hire a BPI certified contractor to do any kind of work on your envelope according to air sealing and insulation. I think I said enough about that.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Susan, our next
Okay,
question, please.
yes, we have a question from Mark. Can you tell us how many solar geothermal installations have occurred over the past few years in East Goshen, and are the numbers increasing?
So for solar, I did run a report a while back, and I don't have it in front of me, but they've been down. We had a spike a number of years ago when there were some incentives from the state and federal government, but they have gone down. We probably have 4 or 5 a year. That's probably over the last few years, but that is down from where it was. And I think that spike, and maybe Mike and Kip, if you have the year, I can't remember. I think it was around 11, 12. There was a lot of incentives, solar incentives, and there was some really good deals out there. The challenge is that, and then for geothermal, I could run a report, but I'm sure that they're on the rise because they're becoming more and more cost effective, and there's more contractors out there that are getting familiar with them and using them. And of course, people more so today are cognizant of their energy, their energy footprint. What kind of steward of the environment are they?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, there's another question. I think this is from Cheese Mill homeowner advocating for more conversions to renewables like solar. Our village of 69 homes has asphalt shingle roofs likely to expire in 4 to 6 years. Ours is slated for 2026. Are there any case studies to show the cost analysis, cost benefit to coordinating solar panel and shingle integration and planning for it?
Well, I'm not aware of any studies, but I'm sure there is that would show that cost benefit analysis. But that's the perfect time to do it. We talked about a little before that if you're thinking about solar and your roof needs to be replaced, that's the time to do it, because you're going to get the life out of that new roof, and you're going to get a brand new solar system at 2. So, and it can also be integrated at the same time to ensure that the installation is the most sound for that roof system. The roof is a system, and if you puncture that system, any penetration through that system is a spot for problems. Your soil stacks, your chimney, all those are problem areas for infiltration of water, obviously. So the less and the better you can plan for that with that project combined, there's probably systems out there that would that makes it much easier if you're considering the solar and the roof replacement at the same time. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that answered it. I think the other thing would be to start early, because I know a lot of Hershey Mill is engineered trusses. So there's going to be an analysis needed for that, as well as the study for what type of solar they would want exposure. There's the big question.
Yeah.
An exposure study to make sure if they're going to get the efficiency out of that solar system, for a direction of which way the roofs are facing. Do all the solar panels have to be on the front of the homes, which is not going to be very aesthetic to look at, but the point is that what they want. So. All right, thank you.
A lot of the single story units in there, the older villages have very mature trees and they get a lot of shade. So yeah, that's definitely something that they want to take into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you.
That caller just said thank you, and that was promising information, and that they did a PICO assessment and it was so insightful and cost effective. So just a response to that.
Good.
Okay, and just 2 other comments I wanted to pass on to you, Mark, that someone sent in. That was very helpful information given on the space around panels needed for firefighters. He had 3 proposals and none of the vendors had addressed the issue. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough part with solar. I'll just add real quick.
Okay, no, that's.
Some of these guys, they get a solicitation permit from the township and they start wandering around neighborhoods. Now, for me, as a consumer, I don't buy if someone comes knocks on my door, especially for some investment like that. Tesla was selling solar for a while in East Goshen Township. I can't remember their solar name, Solar Smart or something like that. One of you guys
Correct.
remember. And they were high pressure. It seemed high pressure, and people just didn't get a good feel. And whenever we get an application from them, it was incomplete. It didn't address any township ordinances. Even after we sent it to them 3 times, it's a little frustrating when they don't follow through. They're just looking for that sale and they want to move on to the next one. So really do your homework and, price them out and get 3 quotes, just like you would if you were going to do an addition on your home, or you're going to buy a car. You're going to look at a couple different cars. You're going to price them out. So, because that's really what you're doing. You're buying a high-end vehicle at the cost.
Are the homeowners able to reach out to you, Mark, or someone in the code official department to say, is this a reputable company that's done work in the township and you haven't seen any issues, or you have seen issues?
So we typically don't take or make recommendations. And the folks from Tesla obviously have a great product. It wasn't them, it's whoever their sales vendors were out there running around trying to get the numbers up. And that's not necessarily a reflection on the actual company who builds the solar panel. Unfortunately, it was just a tactic, their sales tactic in this area that was, so they didn't do their homework on their own. My folks here, we won't give recommendations. We won't, but they could always ask to see if they're registered. You can always check to see if they're registered in the state of Pennsylvania, because all home improvement contractors have to be registered in the state of Pennsylvania with the Attorney General's office. But I mean, that just about anybody can get registered. So.
Okay, we had another
Great.
comment. Oh, that was just talking again about the solar panels. They said that many of the solar systems in the panels are not being warranted for at least 25 years, but many of the systems are still working like 30 to 40 years after.
It's good to know.
That was
Yeah.
just
That's a great thing to know.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we've
Okay.
heard, they could stop producing, or they almost have a half-life at 15. So you're still working, but they're probably not working to the same level. The other challenge is that when they have to be replaced, what we're hearing is they're very difficult to dispose of. There's a lot of heavy metals, and they can't just go to landfill. They have to be properly disposed of, and that's an expensive proposition, and may not even be available in your area. So you may have to pay to haul them to a special landfill, I don't know, in New Jersey or Delaware or Virginia, I don't know. So.
All right, I'd like to wrap it up there. David, do you want to close this out and close out this meeting?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for attending our first seminar. There'll be hopefully going forward a series of these. We have a second one planned. Again, this is sponsored by our Sustainability Advisory Committee with the mission of assisting the township in its sustainability goals. Just so everyone on the call knows that we did an audit of the township sustainability a year and a half ago, and we were certified gold standard by the Pennsylvania League of Municipalities program. So we're doing a lot of really good things in the sustainability area. If you're interested in that, please contact us. Jason is the staff. Jason Lang is a staff person. I'm the board liaison to that committee. I would love to hear your ideas and thoughts for future seminars. And please sign on to our next seminar, KIPS 29th.
June 29th right now it's scheduled. We haven't set that date in firm yet, but that's the date for the part two.
So look for those messages, and I want to thank our panelists. Great information, and thank you for attending and asking questions on the Zoom.
And I just want to say that this has been recorded on live on YouTube, so you can rewatch this if you need to from our YouTube, the Township's YouTube channel.
All right.
Great.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Good night.